What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com, and I am recording this on Sunday evening, August 13th, the day before the number one recruit in the country, the number one defensive end in the country, William Nwaneri, announces his college decision, which at this point is reportedly down to Oklahoma and Missouri. But we'll run through all of his final schools and their pitch and where I think those schools stand with Nwaneri and his recruitment. And then I'll go in depth on the two leaders that we know, which are Oklahoma and Missouri. And then lastly, I'm going to make my prediction where William Nwaneri commits tomorrow afternoon. So without further ado, let's talk about it. So let's just start with a quick rundown of Nwaneri's final five. And that is Oklahoma, Missouri, Oregon, Georgia, and Tennessee. Now, with Missouri and Oklahoma being the consensus leaders in this recruitment, I'm going to get Oregon, Georgia, and Tennessee out of the way first. So, for a long time in this recruitment, Georgia was considered a pretty strong contender. Obviously, their pitch is pretty simple. They compete for national championships. They're an absolute NFL factory. There's no reason why Nwaneri wouldn't want to go there. But their NIL pitch isn't necessarily as strong in comparison to, say, Oregon or Missouri in this specific recruitment. And that's why they're kind of a distant third in this recruitment. I would put them in third place, right behind Missouri and Oklahoma, but they're third. And being third when there's only one winner doesn't really matter. Then there's Oregon. Oregon, a lot of people have rumored that they have the highest NIL offer to William Nwaneri. Oregon has a lot of NIL money. They have some of the best facilities in the country. They were also Nwaneri's last visit before he wrapped up the recruiting process. But nobody really sees them as a true contender here, mostly because of the proximity from home. They're further away from home than any of the other schools on Nwaneri's final five. So it seems like they're not really in contention here, but if they were closer to home, maybe they would have been. Then there's Tennessee, and honestly, I never really saw Tennessee as a true contender in this recruitment. They're very much on the outside looking in. I mean, look, they put together a couple of really good years with Josh Heupel. You could say that they're on the rise right now. They have a Heisman candidate and Joe Milton this year at quarterback. So there's things to like about Tennessee as a program, but there's nothing that stands out here as a reason why Nwaneri would go to Tennessee. I'm sure they also have an NIL offer on the table of some sort, but it's just not as high as Oklahoma or Missouri or Oregon or any of those schools. So they're pretty much on the outside looking in. But let's get down to our contenders, Oklahoma and Missouri. So most of you are Missouri fans. That's why you're here, and that's why you're subscribed to me. I'm also a Missouri fan. I cover Missouri football. So I'm going to start with them first. Missouri, the pitch has always been obvious. Look at Luther Burden and what he's done and the NIL money that he's received. Look how much he's treated as this hometown hero, this local star. Everybody loves him. You could go to Oklahoma, sure. You could go to Georgia, sure. And very likely compete for conference championships or even national championships. But you're not going to be loved at those schools the way you're going to be loved at Missouri. You're not going to get NIL money at those schools that you're going to get at Missouri. And the philosophy is, if you do this with enough elite local recruits like Luther Burden, like William Nwaneri, and then there's Ryan Wingo, the 5-star wide receiver that Mizzou is in on right now. If he were to come, eventually you're going to stack up enough of those guys, enough of those elite recruits that you could compete for a title. You could compete for a conference title. We're not there yet, but you can help us get there. You could be transformative for this program. You're going to be good anywhere you go. Sure, Oklahoma and Georgia are going to feed you that they've put all these prospects in the league and all that stuff, but the truth is, no matter where you go, you're probably going to make the NFL. And Missouri, not a single 5-star recruit that they've signed hasn't been put in the NFL. Sheldon Richardson, Dorial Green-Beckham, Blaine Gabbert. All the 5-star players that they've signed have made the NFL. So it's not like it can't be done here like those places are telling you. We just had a defensive end that made all SEC and was drafted in the 4th round of the Cleveland Browns. And then on top of it, there's the new NIL legislation that was passed by the state of Missouri that gives the University of Missouri a strong advantage in this recruitment. And this is what a lot of people have not really grasped yet. It's very new. It's kind of a gray area. This is what a lot of Oklahoma people who have covered this recruitment or followed this recruitment have also failed to understand, is that Missouri signed a law. They passed a law that states recruits that sign with the University of Missouri can start making NIL money as soon as they sign a letter of intent with the school, meaning that Missouri can give them a head start on receiving life-changing money. These kids will still be in high school, and they will start receiving NIL funds if they sign with Missouri. This only goes for the in-state school. So Williams Nwaneri cannot then sign with Oklahoma and get money at the same time that he would get it from Missouri. Now, some pushback that I've heard from OU fans and OU reporters on this idea is that, oh, well, it's only a couple months earlier. If he were to be an early enrollee at Oklahoma, it's a couple months difference, not that big of a deal. However, if you actually read the fine print of the law passed by Missouri, it states that a player can start receiving NIL money as soon as they sign an agreement with the school, meaning like a financial aid agreement. If Williams Nwaneri were to sign a financial aid agreement with the University of Missouri, which he could technically do the day he commits to the Missouri Tigers, or in September, I should say, because the law will go into effect by then, September 1st, that's when he could start receiving money. And that is a hell of a lot earlier than any other school could start paying him. Now, there is one caveat to that. A financial aid agreement is not legally binding to the school. It also doesn't mean that Nwaneri couldn't just commit to Missouri, start receiving NIL money from them, and then still decide that he wants to go to Oklahoma later. There would be nothing stopping him from doing that. Because a financial aid agreement doesn't necessarily mean you have to show up to that school once class starts. He could still go to Oklahoma while receiving NIL funds from Missouri. Now, would he actually do that? Probably not, because that's going to commit career suicide, and it's going to be a lot of investors hesitant to give you NIL deals in the future. But that is one downside to this law. But it's a gray area that Missouri is now operating in that I'm sure a lot of other blue blood schools are kind of pissed off about because it gives them an advantage in these recruitments. And it's also a big reason that 5-star wide receiver Ryan Wingo is likely to end up at Missouri. Ultimately, Missouri was one of Nwaneri's first offers when he started playing football his sophomore year. They were in on him even earlier than Oklahoma was. That said, Oklahoma, and I'm transitioning into their pitch now and how things are starting to shape up, Oklahoma is a big-time program, and while they went 6-7 last year with head coach Brent Venables, Venables was previously the defensive coordinator for Clemson, and Clemson was about as good as putting defensive linemen in the NFL as anybody. And he has a long track record of putting elite defensive players in the NFL, elite defensive prospects in the NFL. So it's fairly obvious why Oklahoma is in consideration here. And also, it's a good program. There's no denying that. I know they had a down year last year with first-year head coach, but, it makes sense. It makes sense why Nwaneri would consider them. And then also Oklahoma has one of the bigger NIL offers out to Nwaneri. That's what's been reported. Nwaneri has stated in interviews all over the internet, the relationships that he's built with Oklahoma are very strong and their staff, and specifically their defensive line coach, Miguel Chavis. You can watch videos of Miguel Chavis when he speaks. He's very young, very energetic, very charismatic guy, hard guy to not like. So again, it all makes sense why Nwaneri would be considering Oklahoma. But when you look at this recruitment, what has developed over the last few weeks, it seems like Missouri has captured a lot of momentum. They picked up some future casts on rivals from guys like Clint Cosgrove and Gabe DeArmond, who is the editor for Power Mizzou. There's been a lot of chatter that Missouri has surged late in this recruitment. And then even though a lot of what I know comes from a premium message board, and I cannot share that, there has been stuff that has come out on Twitter from Oklahoma rivals insiders saying stuff like, Missouri's momentum is dead in the water, and Oklahoma has this wrapped up, and they've insisted ever since Missouri has started to get the momentum in this recruitment that Oklahoma was the team to beat, and that, oh, he's not going to pick Missouri, he's coming to Oklahoma. Very fanboyish, very... It just seemed like they were so unwilling to admit that Missouri had any kind of momentum. There's just no way Oklahoma could lose a recruiting battle to Missouri, right? Especially for a 5-star player. And that's what I've been seeing from Oklahoma fans on social media throughout this entire recruitment. You know, how could he go to Missouri? Their coaching staff isn't going to be there next year. He can go to a mediocre school, stuff like that. This isn't going to be over till signing day if he doesn't come to Oklahoma. And I've always thought that Oklahoma fans were a little too high on themselves in this recruitment because, for one, they want to talk about Eli Drinkwitz and the fact he hasn't had a winning season yet, fine. But Brent Venables is one more 6 and 7 season away from being in the exact same boat as Eli Drinkwitz. So it's not like you can say, hey, Williams, you know, we won 10 games last year. We're a much better program. Why don't you come here? You can't really say that. I've tried stressing to Oklahoma fans on their message board the impact of this Missouri NIL law. They want to act like it's not a big deal. Okay, but I promise you, if and when Williams Nwaneri commits to Missouri tomorrow night, one of the biggest reasons you're going to hear why this happened is because of Missouri's NIL law. And I'm trying to look at this very unbiased, but it's hard when Oklahoma fans and Oklahoma publishers want to sit here and act like there's just no reason at all why Williams Nwaneri should ever consider Missouri instead of Oklahoma. I mean, Missouri does return a top 20 defense from last year, and they had a defensive lineman drafted, and I mean, there's reasons to be optimistic. And then, of course, there's NIL, and Missouri offers the most NIL, and it's also the in-state school. It would be the home state school. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for Williams Nwaneri to pick Missouri tomorrow night. But if and when he does, it's not going to be just because of the money. Yes, money is going to be a large factor, but I know there's going to be comments saying, oh, well, he's just going there because of the money. One, well, yeah, wouldn't you? But secondly, there's a lot more reason than just money that people just refuse to acknowledge. But for Parker Toon, who is Oklahoma's rivals guy, and I've seen this on Twitter now a few times, a screenshot saying Missouri's momentum was dead in the water from earlier this week. I just found that totally unprofessional because there were people on both the Oklahoma and Missouri side on multiple recruiting services stating that this was not the case, that Missouri was still very much in it. You know, just speaking in absolutes when this recruitment has been one of the most difficult to follow for a lot of people. And my theory is that Parker, who claims to be very connected to the LSN staff where Nwaneri goes to high school and plays football, just was being told everything he wanted to hear. Meanwhile, Nwaneri and his family, who are the only ones who truly know where he wants to go, or keeping this thing very tight, very close to the vest. And Parker was just taking what he heard, what he wanted to hear, and telling that to all of his subscribers, all of his readers. And I just think he got played like a fiddle. That's what I think. And I'll just tell you right now, my prediction for tomorrow is Missouri. I think Williams Nwaneri is heading to Missouri. And the reason I'm so confident in saying that now is because literally right before making this video, Steve Wiltfong and Alan Tro of 24/7 Sports, who are some of the best predictors when it comes to recruiting, those are national recruiting experts, just logged a crystal ball prediction for Williams Nwaneri to commit to Missouri tomorrow, and a couple more rivals publishers just put in future casts for Williams Nwaneri to Missouri tomorrow. And that was right before I started recording. And usually when you have that many guys, that many high-profile guys logging predictions all at the same time for a kid to go somewhere, it means they know something, and they're probably right. And so I got Nwaneri picking Missouri tomorrow. I think he's going to pick up that Missouri hat off the table. I think Missouri fans have a ton of reason to be excited. There was reason to be optimistic before today, but it seemed like a very 50-50 recruitment. A lot of people on both sides were saying they were confident, but I think Missouri has had the momentum for a few weeks now. Nwaneri had an interview on 3 Sports a few weeks ago saying the decision had been made for a few weeks. And so I think a lot of this stuff has just been noise. Nwaneri knows where he wants to go. I think that school is Missouri. I think if you read the tea leaves, you look at Eli Drinkwitz's Twitter timeline and how he started tweeting W's a few weeks ago and was telling people to buckle up, he was hinting towards something. And that was around the time that article came out of Nwaneri saying that he knows where he wants to go. And I think that's when Missouri had this all wrapped up. And I think Eli Drinkwitz closed on this a while ago, and people just haven't realized it yet. So those are my thoughts on this recruitment. I got William Nwaneri, the #1 defensive end in the country, committing to the University of Missouri tomorrow evening. I hope you guys are as excited as I am because I think this is going to happen, and I absolutely cannot wait because the momentum from this commitment is going to be huge, and who knows how high Missouri's recruiting class is going to rank once they can get the #1 player in the country on board. I'll have more tomorrow after this actually happens, assuming that it happens, but buckle up, guys, because this is going to be fun. But with all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Mizzou fans can find this. And make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com. And I will see you all in the next one. MIZ.